Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to this OA webinar. So we're joined by Citibank, who will be sort of discussing their military program and some upcoming opportunities. So I'm Esme Dixon. I'm part of the employer engagement team here at the Officers Association, and we've been working with Citi now for a while. So Laurence, if I hand over to you, if you just wanted to introduce yourself and your fellow speakers.
Thanks, Esme. Hi, my name is Laurence Whittingham. I work in our markets business. I've been with the bank for 4.5 years now, and formerly Queenswell Lancer before that. I'm joined by Nick Hill, who was formerly Royal Marine Officer, now in our private bank, and also by Jack Pyle, who was former Household Cavalry Officer and now also works in our markets division.
Brilliant. Thank you. So today in the webinar, we're going to be looking at sort of who are Citibank, what it can mean for you, and the Citi Salutes Network. There will be the opportunity for questions. We're going to save them till the end, but please do type them in. I'll keep a note of them, and as I say, we'll cover them towards the end. So over to you guys, the world's most global bank.
Thanks, Esme. What I want to do is just spend a few moments talking about who Citibank are, because I think this is something that perhaps the military community don't know a lot about, not being a UK high street bank, and then talk about a little bit about our culture, and then move on to what's probably more relevant for most of the people on this call, which is the opportunities that we have for service leavers, and then a few experiences from Nick, Jack, and I on how we got here. So, who is Citi? Citi is not a well-known bank in the UK because we don't have a large retail presence here. But actually, Citi is really the largest bank in the world at the moment. We are present in almost 100 countries around the world. We have over 100 million retail customers around the world. We've got trading floors in 98 countries around the world. The size of the bank is staggering, and that size is our great differentiator and our great competitive edge within the finance world. Citi itself as an institution is about 200,000 people. That is a number that's come down since the financial crisis, but it's been pretty steady at 200,000. And that workforce is spread really all over the world. There is just a handful of countries that we are not present in. Many of those are for political reasons, or simply in the case of Greenland because there's no one to bank there. But where we really have our competitive edge is in the emerging market countries around the world, where many of our competitors have been exiting the industry over the last 5-10 years, who are traditionally very strong there. And Citi, as an institution, has been investing in those countries and building out. Of course, the sort of G10 world, which we're all so familiar with, is the backbone of what we do. But where we can really bank our largest clients is in these local markets where no one else can be there. And the idea that you can do, as an institutional client, global banking with Citi is probably one of our greatest selling points. So looking at the next slide, if we may, Esme. What is it about Citi that sets us apart? What is our ethos? I mean, I don't think we'll be unique on the street to say that central to our business is our clients, but that is really a theme that is present in all of our work every day. Being the best for our clients is what gets us the business that we are competing for with our competitors. And Citi really takes this seriously, and it is part of the culture of the bank, and actually it's a very healthy culture and something that me as a veteran can really relate to, and it's been sort of great to be involved with. The business that we see today has changed dramatically as the landscape of the finance industry has changed since the financial crisis. We have shed a dramatic amount of assets from our balance sheet. That's been no secret. We've taken $800 billion of non-core assets out of our balance sheet since the financial crisis. And if you've done your research on Citibank, the bank came within a whisker of being no more during the financial crisis. And actually, that opportunity for us to rebalance the balance sheet has allowed us to be the bank we are today. So, we've seen ourselves streamline our institutional client base from 32,000 down to 13,000. We've streamlined the consumer bank from 41 markets down to 19 markets, and the workforce has reduced the size since 2012 from 260,000 down to 200,000, and that is largely a stable number. But what it means is we went through this exercise as a bank back in 2012 and have been able to expand ever since. Whereas I'm sure if you're following the news in the press right now, other banks are having to go through that process now. So Citi is in a good position as a global organization to be able to continue to expand, and that is exactly what we're doing as a bank. So looking at the next slide, we couldn't do a banking presentation without putting down some awards. I just picked a couple, and it's really just to say that Citi really tries to excel in all areas. The bank doesn't want to just be fantastic at investment banking, or maybe the best digital bank, or maybe the best banking payments. What makes Citibank as a brand work is the fact that we can do everything for our clients, and we're pretty good at it. And obviously it oscillates a little bit with some of the other big US banks, but Citi prides itself in being at the top of this game on everything we do, and covering all aspects of it. I think some of the things of the amount of liquidity we process. I've put a few things down here. $4 trillion of liquidity goes through us every day. I mean, that is a staggering sum of money, and something that probably seems almost unbelievable from a UK perspective when you consider the size of our business globally. Is something that all parts of the bank facilitate for our clients. We've had a big exercise over the last year in returning capital to our shareholders. There's been a huge buyback scheme. We've put $3.1 billion back to our shareholders over the last year. And that is a sign of a healthy bank, and a bank that is comfortable with its balance sheet. And that played out just a few weeks ago when we had our quarterly results, and we posted $4.8 billion for the quarter, 7% up on the year. So Citi's having a great year at the moment. And it's had a great year last year, and all things being well, it'll continue to expand. So looking to how we're structured on the next slide, this is probably the bit that we need to focus on. So if we look at the next slide, Esme. So how is the bank structured? So there are a number of areas in the bank that that obviously we're not going to cover today. What we want to look at is our institutional clients group. This is the real engine room of the bank that we have here in London, in Europe, and this is where our core opportunities for service levers exist. So I'm going to run through really briefly what these 4 areas are, and then we're going to actually talk about what the opportunities are within them. So every bank will largely have these areas, and they'll all call them something different. So this will probably be familiar to many people on the call. So markets and security services. This is the trading floor of the bank. This is, I think, what a lot of people will imagine when they think about going into banking. This is where Jack and I work, and this is the real sort of sales trading aspect of the bank, where we are buying and selling different products for our clients. We have a huge market and security services business, not just here in London, but in local markets. We cover everything from equities, futures, FX, rates, credit, commodities. Actually, interesting on commodities, this is an area that we are building out as a bank. We've been buying books of other banks over the last couple of years, and continue to grow from a bank that wasn't particularly strong in commodities to something that's doing very well. Securitization, municipals, prime brokerage, research, all of these things sit within the markets business and our markets program. And different parts of the world are better at different things. At the moment, London really is the center of FX. It's the area that I work in, and Citi has consistently had the largest market share in the world of foreign exchange. Over the last 3 years, our closest competitor being JP Morgan. But the scale of this business and the range of products that we trade is truly staggering. But it's all linked into the wider bank, which leads nicely into the BCMA area, which is banking, capital markets, and advisory. This is effectively corporate investment banking. So for those of you who are sort of thinking, traditional banking, this is it. This is relationship management, of managing the holistic relationship for our clients. If you think some of our biggest institutional clients, they might be doing everything from their cash management, their wealth management, their ECM, their debt capital markets, and their trading with us. Well, someone has to look after that, and that's what our relationship managers do in our corporate bank. And then we've also got our investment bank that manages some of the more traditional banking activities that you'll probably be thinking of: M&A, ECM, DCM, structured finance. And this is a very fast-paced part of banking. There's lots of press on it. There's lots of books on it. What life is like in this part of the bank, and it's a fast-paced life. Citi's M&A division are having a knockout year this year. We're giving the traditional top runners in this area a run for their money this year, and Citi continues to invest in this. And year to date, we've had a really top year in EMEA. On the slightly more specialist side, we've then got the private bank. Now, this is something that perhaps people will associate more with standalone institutions. The traditional view of private banking is, gentlemen's clubs, long lunches, and all that sort of stuff. The old school double-breasted suit. But actually, as the world has moved on towards private banking, and Citi has developed a very dynamic and proactive private bank, we specialize in looking after some of the largest high net worth individuals in the world, private offices in the world. We look after guys with net worths of $100 or above, up to some of the world's most well-known billionaires. And private banking is about giving our clients access to a full suite of wealth management products. It's about giving them access to our markets products and our banking products, but in a more refined and discreet manner, because clearly that underpins a lot of what our private banking clients do. So it's a really big part of what we do here in the bank, and actually an area we've had a lot of success placing ex-forces personnel into. The final part of the institutional clients group is our Treasury and Trade Solution division. Now, this is a new part of the bank that we're bringing on to the military program this year. It's very exciting for us to be able to do that. Traditionally not something we've recruited into, but actually when we looked at it, something that really plays the strengths of people in the military. So, what is TTS all about? I mean, this is sort of the engine room of multinational corporations and financial institutions. It's about the movement of money, the management of people's funds, working capital and trade finance solutions. This is what makes international businesses work, and it goes hand in hand with BCMA and to a certain extent security services. And this is a massive part of the bank, and something that is under a lot of scrutiny at the moment within the fintech world, with digital disruption and digital innovation. But this is a part of the bank that truly utilizes Citi's global reach to give our clients access to move money really anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. And it's a great differentiator for Citi, because so many other banks will have to access other people's networks, use agent banks, what have you. Citi can say to their clients, we will allow you to move money, across 20 countries with instant payments, across 120, different jurisdictions through our banking network. And what does that mean for international business? Well, cash is king for business, and to be able to see where your money is in real time at any point in the world is a very important thing for business. So Trade and Treasury Solutions, a really fast-growing part of the bank, and a new aspect that we're bringing into our military program. And a lot of what sits behind TTS is project management, product management, and relationship management, and those things fit very well into the military toolkit, if you like, and something that we're really looking forward to bringing in this year. So that's the structure of the bank. Let's talk a little bit about what Citi can do for people in the armed forces. So if we go to the next slide, thank you very much. So look, I'm going to hand over in a second to my colleagues from our recruitment team, and I'll let them introduce themselves. But I just want to say a few headline things before we talk about the structure of the program. We are the only bank in London offering dedicated front office full-time roles. And I think that's a really important thing to stress, because when I was leaving the military, having done 7 years and with a young family, understanding where I was going to go and what was going to happen in 6, 12 months, 18 months time, was at the forefront of my mind. We are the only bank who will give you a full-time job in the front office. We do not shotgun people across different parts of the bank. Some at the front, middle, and then back office. We will let you have a shot at the title. And this is something that's really core to us in what we offer. So what I'll do is I'll hand over to the guy just to talk about how we structure our team, and then I'm going to come back a little bit in just a few moments to talk about what that pipeline looks like.
Thank you. Sorry, I know I said I wouldn't butt in with questions, but we've had this one come through quite a few times now, and it ties in nicely. Just wondering whether you could explain just briefly what the front office role sort of actually looks like and what that means. I'm not sure if people are sort of familiar with that term and necessarily understand what the role entails.
Yeah, that is a good question. Let me think on my feet on this one. Front office roles, it's probably easier to describe back office roles. So front office roles is client facing. You are client facing in the money generating part of the bank. You are there to either trade or sell the bank's products or directly face our clients in your business area and transact effectively. It's the transactional side of the bank. The back office is the sort of the engine room in the background that allows everything to go forwards. It's our operations division, it's our settlements division, it's our legal division, it's our human resources division. It's everything that makes the business function as a business. And in the middle of that is literally the middle office, and this is sort of the sort of slightly grey area between the two, where you have things like our business management divisions, where you've got guys who are sitting on the trading floor and they're there to sort of manage the holistic business, or they're there to support the front office roles. But when I talk about front office roles, I'm talking about people who are going to be directly facing clients in a revenue generating role. Hopefully that answers the question. But let me hand over now to my colleagues in our graduate recruitment team just to talk about how Citi structure our programs and what you might expect coming onto the program.
Thanks, Laurence. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Boyle. I'm on the campus recruitment team. I look after our private bank and our markets recruitment. In terms of how our programs work, so for you guys, we'll obviously be hosting a Military Insight Day. You should all have seen the advertisement for it and have the link to apply. But you can apply to that. You get to come and spend the day with us, which includes some desk shadowing, some presentations from the different divisions that Laurence has spoken about. And then our applications will open. So how that process works is they open up first week of September. As we've already said, Citi actually reserves headcount for the front office roles, which is unique amongst our competitors. So you guys actually get first stab at applying for the programs, and you'll get put through the assessment process quicker than the rest of our application candidates applying. So I said it opened up in September. How the process works is you submit an application, which is your CV and a cover letter. And in the cover letters, we look for sort of your motivation for why banking, why Citi, and why the particular program you think you want to go for. As part of the process, everybody then has to take a numeric test. It's an online test, and you have to meet the passing threshold. Once you've taken that, the first step of the process is then to have a first round telephone interview. That's usually with members of the business. It's 2 30-minute phone interviews. One of them is more around some of the technical skills, and one will be around like your competency and your motivation. And for the technical skills, and that might be a bit scary, especially for people who haven't studied finance, you don't have to worry about it. Nobody's going to expect you to be a whiz at everything. It's just kind of having a basic understanding or grasp of what you would potentially be doing. And then if you're successful in the first round of interviews, you get invited in for what's called an assessment center. And the assessment center is sort of like a half-day event. It has elements of individual interviews as well as a group exercise component. And then after that, if you're successful in that, that is when you would look to get your offer, and then you would start sort of the following year. So sort of this time next year, September time. The way the programs are structured, they are slightly different between the different divisions. So, for instance, some of them have rotational aspects, some don't. But we could get into more detail around that if anybody has questions, and you certainly find out more about that if you do attend the Insight Day.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Look, I'll just say a few things about what we're looking for and how we got there. We have this headcount because the business recognizes that military service leavers bring with them a really unique skill set, and we'll talk about that in our own experiences of joining the bank. But the business, when this was set up in 2014, 2015, it really wanted to diversify the talent pool it had within its front office, because like all banks, they've traditionally recruited from the same business schools, same sort of degrees, really the same sort of people. And actually, at the time, they wanted the business to be more nimble and really think outside the box. And one of my predecessor pitched this to New York back in 2014 on this idea of you can bring military people onto the trading floor or the corporate bank or the investment bank with really unparalleled experiences from our time in the military and challenge the way in which we think. And that is what we are looking for in the people we want to apply to our programs, because ultimately you're going to be going up against people who typically will be coming out of business school. They may have done a couple of different jobs in finance, and they will have a lot of experience in the finance world. But what we see time and time again is service leavers standing up to those people and outperforming them in many cases, because the fact you have real life experience that you can bring to business and utilize to be effective in whatever role you go into. But we ultimately have to restart. If you want to go into a front office role, you need to restart and go back again from the beginning. And that is the crux of our program. Ultimately, if you want to be a bond trader, unless you know how to trade bonds, you're going to need to retrain to be a bond trader. I'm a foreign exchange sales trader. I didn't know how to structure FX derivatives. I didn't know how to deal options. I had to start again and re-go. And that is what this program is all about. It's giving the opportunity to go on to one of our front office programs, retrain in a very demanding role, and have a full career in whatever business area you go into. That is different to other banks who will say to people, we'll take you into our operations division. You can run a team of 100 people, and it's very intuitive to it. But so what we have is very unique. It's been really well received by the bank, and the bank is really hungry for the people that we've been bringing in. So let's talk a little bit about maybe some of our experiences joining Citibank. I've talked a lot, so I'm going to hand over straight away to Nick, just to talk about some of the experiences he's had leaving the Marines, coming into Citi, the challenges, the highs, the lows, and the lessons he's learned along the way. So Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Laurence. Good evening, guys and girls. So essentially, what's the point is, I actually looked at Citi first. So remembering I left 2 years ago, or started in January 2017. So I remember very clearly what it's like to be in your shoes and the questions that you're asking and the jobs that you're looking at and broadly understanding, but you can't fully understand because you haven't looked behind the curtain fully yet, etc. And so this is ideal that you've dialed in, so you get a look at the other side of the curtain, so to speak. I did 8 years in the Marines. I did engineering at university and motorsport engineering. And when I left, I took the same approach as when I did when I left university, essentially, and I said, I'll interview for a whole host of stuff, and I'll choose the interview as well as, letting the interview choose me. So I looked at Formula One teams, I looked at Amazon, I interviewed to be a teacher and a housemaster in Taunton, yada, yada, yada. But I also obviously attended the Insight Day, and I attended the Citi Insight Day was the first thing that I did, because it was in June at the time. And I then spent 12 months trying to find a better fit than what I found and couldn't, thank goodness, hence why I'm here. But the reason is that Citi, for me personally, I left with a wife, 2-year-old son, etc. So I wanted something that was going to grow me in the near term and give me career opportunities in the long term. Citi, I joined the private bank, which is a 2.5-year program. So that's 5-6-month rotations essentially across the private bank, across different departments. So you get to learn investment finance, you get to learn investments. I'm currently trading credit derivatives. I get to look at risk and compliance. I get to look at the front office and be in a relationship role and shadow some bankers who are dealing with the ultra high net worth individuals. And alongside that, do my financial exams, and I'm currently studying for my CFA. So there's not many organisations that you'll find out there, from what I've seen and from what I understand now, having been behind the curtain for 2 years, which give you that level of opportunity to retrain, reintegrate, get your professional credibility back up to scratch, so that you can then implement all of the great traits that we have in terms of, finding your way around a big organisation, influencing people, getting things done, etc. So that's kind of the reason why I chose it. Big challenges. Sitting at a desk is uncomfortable, obviously, for the majority of the day. Although, having said that, there's a gym downstairs. There's not too much of a culture change there, so you can hit the gym in the morning. You're always away from your desk for the first 2 years, networking, having coffees, and finding your way around and building your network, which is probably as important as anything else in the first 2 years anyway. And obviously, I wouldn't be here if this wasn't the case, but I absolutely love it, and I wouldn't change this decision for anything. And I can't advocate for this program enough. It really is outstanding, and out of all of my peers that left, I feel like I have absolutely won the lottery, and I'm by far in the best position out of my other contemporaries who I know have left over the last 3 years or so.
Thanks, Nick. I'm just going to hand over to Jack now. I'm going to congratulate Jack on his truly terrible moustache that he's supplied in his photo. But Jack, over to you to talk about your experiences.
Apologies for that. So yeah, as it says there, I left the Household Cavalry at the beginning of last year, and sort of left the office in Knightsbridge on a Friday and turned up to Citi the following Monday. Now, what attracted me to Citi? I mean, most of these points you've probably heard being laboured over the course of the presentation, but for me it was the opportunity to work in what has proven to be an incredibly fast-paced, exciting and front office role. But more importantly, before I've got to the stage where I settled down on the desk I now find myself on, it was the pretty extensive training program that they put you through. So before you even find yourself shadowing anyone on a desk, you have 6 weeks worth of training with dedicated external staff that come in and take you through from the very basics of finance and make sure you are as prepared as possible for when you finally find yourself out on the trading floor. And then following that, you've got a rotation program. I did 3 10-week rotations on 3 different desks. And having had that initial training, you then get the opportunity to move around various different areas within markets, which is where I chose to join. So you can be doing anything across sales roles, trading roles, structuring roles, and it can be across all the different asset classes, whether it be foreign exchange, commodities, or equities. So I had the opportunity to join this front office role, to have the extensive training, but then also have the exposure across the various different asset classes. So that's really what attracted me to the Citi role. And sort of rest assured that over the last 18 months, it's delivered exactly what I expected it to. In terms of the challenges, I suppose, for me, not necessarily the challenges, but the concerns coming in was definitely the technical knowledge. Like Nick, I also did an engineering degree at university. It's not a prerequisite for the scheme. But the first time I set foot in a bank was when I turned up for my assessment day at Citi. Now, obviously, I was incredibly concerned about the level of my knowledge, but actually, there are so many resources out there on the internet. There are so many books, so many articles you can read, where actually you can gain the foundations you need. You don't need to have a sort of a PhD in economics by the time you turn up. You just need to have that solid grounding, which with a few hours worth of preparation, it'll be fairly easy to get. And I suppose the second challenge, which has been alluded to as well, is the idea of finding yourself at the bottom of the food chain. And I know there are plenty of people who have had very successful careers in the army, and it may feel a little bit daunting to find yourself turning up on day one with the graduate straight out of university. However, I found that this bank, like I imagine most banks are, but this bank in particular, it's a highly meritocratic environment that you're working in. And on the desk, on the trading floor, it is an incredibly flat structure. So you're given that opportunity, and if you can seize the opportunity and you can perform when it's asked of you, you'll be given increasingly large amounts of responsibility and the opportunity to take responsibility over time. So don't let that idea that you're suddenly going to be back at sort of day one, week one of Sandhurst put you off. And actually, I found myself being sent within a year of turning up at the bank. I was off all over Europe, meeting clients, interacting with clients, and pitching deals. So don't feel like you're going to be locked away in a dark room for years on end before you're actually going to be sort of unleashed upon the market. So yeah, I mean that's in a nutshell the first 18 months of my career at Citi, and it's provided everything that I expected it to.
Thanks, Jack. So I'll just finish up with my experiences. So I spent 7 years in the Queenswell Lancers and joined Citi in 2015 on one of the first iterations of our program. I did 4 rotations across the trading floor in FX sales, emerging market bond sales, in bond trading, and then also in equity sales trading. And I settled in the corporate FX desk. I now deal foreign exchange for huge international corporates, who need foreign exchange as part of their business or hedging, and dealing everything now from spot, forward, swaps through to sort of really exotic options. And when I look back over the last 4.5 years, I think what I find amazing is how much I've learned and the pace at which I've learned. And to echo what the guy said, I started Citi with a young family and finishing up a really fun career in the army, and was very much worried about how I would fit in and compete with the cohort coming out of business school. But actually, I found my feet very quickly and found that people really valued our opinion and the way in which we looked at problems. And I was able to pick up my own client portfolio within about 8 months of starting my team. And within a year, it was trading around $1 billion a day of foreign exchange, which is staggering when I look back at that. Big challenges are the pace of learning, but also that's one of the great pluses, I think, of Citibank. You can't stand still here. There is nowhere to hide. You really have to think on your feet and learn fast. And when I look back at why I left the military and what I was looking for, one of the things I really wanted was to be challenged in what I was doing. I dreaded the thought of sitting behind a desk, looking at the clock on the wall, thinking, when are we going to finish? And I work in a very fast-paced environment, and every day is different, and I love that. And I get to interact with people all around the world every single day, and it's great. It challenges me, and I really enjoy it, and I feel very lucky to have had that opportunity. I took over at the beginning of this year, heading up our military recruitment from a guy called Will Packard, who set the scheme up. And I'm really passionate about trying to get as many people into the bank as possible, into finance as possible, hopefully with Citi, but frankly, we've also helped people go elsewhere if it's a better fit. But we are committed, having gone through this process and established in our careers here, of helping people move from the military into finance, because there is a huge opportunity ahead of people, and it's often dismissed by people thinking, I wouldn't get into that bank, I wouldn't get into that role, but actually you're wrong. you have something that banks all around the world really value and really want. And the first step is being on this call, and the next step is coming on and applying. And that leads me into my last point before we hand over to questions, which is the next step for us. We are running an Insight Day on the 14th of August here in London. The Officers Association have got all the application details. You would have seen the invitation for this. I implore you, if you can make it, to come along to this event. This is a freebie. There is no commitment. You can come in and actually look in an investment bank and see what life is like here. Again, uniquely versus our competitors, we give you the opportunity for 2 hours to come and shadow on a desk in an area of the bank which you've expressed an interest, whether that's the corporate investment bank, whether that's the private bank or markets. We will sit you on a desk with typically non-military personnel to sit and ask questions and soak up the environment and ask yourself, is this somewhere I want to work? Because the biggest challenge that service leavers face when they come out of the Army or Navy or Air Force is, where do I fit in this huge institution, this huge engine room of finance? And the aim of our Insight Day is to give you that overview of what the bank is, what the bank means, and to meet as many people as you can. But uniquely, we'll give you the opportunity during the working day to come sit on the trading floor and think, is this somewhere that I could see myself spending the next decade, 2 decades or more? So I really strongly encourage you, if you can't, diary committee, to come along. There is no commitment at the end of this, but we really want to see as many people as we can. I missed the event. I was on exercise in Canada at the time, and so if you can't make it, it is not the end of the road for you. We will try and meet you individually before we open the application process up. But the best way of seeing the bank is coming to see us on the 14th of August, and you will meet all the guys and girls who have gone through our program over the last 4 years. You'll meet our graduate recruitment campus team. You'll meet our senior management. We have some incredibly senior people from the business coming along to the day. So it's a great opportunity to find out what Citibank can do for you, and whether this could be the place where you start your career when you come out of the armed forces. So I think we've talked for enough. And so we're going to hand over to Esme, who's hopefully collated lots of challenging questions from you on the chat today. So.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So we have been inundated by questions, so I'll sort of try and work through them methodically, but please, if anybody else has any questions, just keep them coming. So firstly, what are the expectations from an employer from a candidate with no financial services experience? So, do you require candidates to go and get any qualifications before they join, or any sort of particular areas you think would be best for service leavers to target?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll start and hand over to Michelle and Lisa on this one. Let me be really clear. You do not need any qualifications in finance to come and work at Citibank. The reason we have this program is to make the most of the skills you've learned in the Army, the Armed Forces. A lot of people do go and do some pre-training before they get here using their enhanced learning credits. Typically, we see people look at the IMC or maybe even CFA Level 1. I personally think CFA Level 1 is a bit over the top. I did the IMC through my enhanced learning credits, got the whole thing paid for by the Army, and it did really help me just understand some of the jargon. And if you think the military is bad, you've seen nothing till you've come to a bank. Just to understand a little bit about what people are saying, but there's absolutely no requirement to do any sort of pre-training in finance. On my desk, we've got guys and girls with degrees in geography, in fine art, all the way through to people who've got masters in quantitative finance. It doesn't matter. Citi is interested in you as a person, but I'll just hand over to Michelle and the guys about the minimum education level that we do require people to have in order to apply to these programs.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the degree requirements, the minimum that we look for is a 2-1. Outside of that, it's really, we want to just know a bit about you. And I think that's a big one that comes up in conversations that as a recruiter have with the business, is people really want to understand who their future colleagues could potentially be. So they really want to see your motivations, what you're interested in. And that's where you have that opportunity to express all of that in the cover letter. And that's also a good part of when you go through the first round interviews, you have those conversations with the folks from the business area, because they really do kind of want to get to know you and understand who you are as a person. You spend a lot of time together on a desk, and, people, they want to make sure the teams can get along. So that's something that's really important to us from a recruitment perspective. Other stuff that we look for, I think, we've already said, you don't have to have certain you don't have to go get any sort of certain qualifications ahead of time, but, anything that you feel like you could do to help yourself get into a better position of understanding, you certainly can do. And as we've alluded to before, there's lots of resource on the material to get yourself up to speed, even just as much as starting to pay attention to the market's news every day, and following along with what's happening so you're aware, and can sort of have conversations that will come up when you interact with people, either, at the Insight Day or perhaps when you are going through the process and going through the first round interviews. Lucy, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. And also, just to add, at the Military Insight Day, there will be a session on cover letter writing and also interviews and assessment centres. If you are not sure and have never done an assessment centre before, we'll give you hints and tips, and also, a rundown of the day and what to expect. So if you were considering going to the Military Insight Day but weren't quite sure, I would definitely recommend you would go to that session as well.
I think, finally, the thing we need most is real enthusiasm and commitment for this. You've got to really show a thirst for wanting this, because ultimately the business, how we've got this program is to take headcount out of elsewhere in the bank. And, these are some of the most sought after jobs on the street. And, we can only, we have to be able to take forward the best people. So you've really got to have shown that you have real commitment and drive to work in a place like this. That's a good question.
Thank you. We've mentioned qualifications briefly, but someone just wanted confirmation that it's definitely a 2-1 minimum degree. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. That's an undergraduate 2-1 degree, and that is a study policy that at this junction we're not able to swerve around. Okay, and so someone else is just saying that they've got a 2-2 master's level. So would that make them eligible to apply, or? Yeah, that is something that we would definitely be happy to speak to people about individually, because we do appreciate that there could be quite a long time between doing an undergraduate degree when you were just leaving school through to doing a master's, let's say at staff college, or after you've left the military. So we'd say 2-1 minimum undergraduate level. If you've got higher degree above that, that is absolutely something we're happy to talk to people about. So don't not apply if you just had a bit too much fun at university, but then you nailed it after university and got yourself a postgrad qualification.
Right. Great. And we've got a couple of people here who are considering doing sort of an MBA program after leaving the services. Do you think that's worthwhile, sort of beneficial before applying to Citi? Is that something you would necessarily look for and make somebody stand out?
We get this question a lot, and we get a lot of guys and girls applying with MBAs. Citi has a dedicated MBA program that is completely separate to this, but in London it recruits specifically from a handful of business schools, primarily London Business School. So having an MBA outside of there would probably mean you would have to just go through the normal program, which is what we're talking about today. Do I think it's worthwhile? I certainly don't think that it's a waste of time, because they are fantastic qualifications. Will it be the difference between you getting a job and not getting a job? In my personal view, and not everyone will agree with me, the answer to that is no. And it largely depends on where you're going to do your MBA and what that MBA really focuses on. But MBAs are still valued on the street very, very highly. But I don't think in the same way they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, where your MBA was the way forward. What the street really values now is CFA. When I say CFA, I mean CFA level 3, which is a very serious qualification. It takes sort of 4 to 6 years to get, and is very difficult to get. That is, funnily enough, in Citi, the only thing you can put as post-nominals after your name. You can't put MBA, you can't put PhD, of which there are many people who have them. You can only put CFA. And I think if you're umming and ahhing about, do I do an MBA then apply to a military program, it's a huge cost to do an MBA. And I personally feel that if you're good enough to get a job at Citi as you're leaving the military, you could do it without having an MBA, but by no means is it a waste of time.
Great, thank you. So I think that'll wrap up the sort of qualifications side of things. But just quickly before we move on, slightly different, but are there any reading materials you could recommend for someone sort of interested in going down the financial services path?
Yeah, I'll let the guys have a crack at this as well. But I certainly, there was I would say for me, my preparation was I started to read The Economist every week, specifically the business and the finance and economic section. The macro stuff at the beginning is really important. I take everything The Economist does with a pinch of salt. Is quite politically orientated one way, let's say, but actually the finance and economic section at the back is really top notch. You don't need to read the FT every single day. Don't go and spend 350 quid on an FT subscription. If you feel like you want to read the FT, actually you're better off buying the weekend FT, and I still get that now, and it is really good. I would say there's a few books that are sort of absolute classics to read, and one of which is Liar's Poker, which is a really classic book. It gives you a good foundation. Flash Boys and The Big Short by the same author, obviously very famous now in a film. But Jack and Nick, what did you do in terms of your preparation?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of that. So it must have been the same advice we both received before we started. But yeah, I also did the IMC before joining, again using the enhanced learning credits. Obviously, timing's pretty tight now to get that done in time for the in time for the application process. But even if it's going on eBay and getting a second-hand set of the IMC books and just flicking through that, not worrying about sitting the exams at the end of it, just to familiarize yourself with the content, that would be a really good grounding to start with.
And literally, ever so quickly, exactly that. And then there's, in terms of macro, there's a great video by a guy called Ray Dalio, who is a hedge fund legend, and it's basically called How the Economic Machine Works. It's 30 minutes on YouTube. Watch that. It's a fantastic summary of how markets interact globally. The Khan Academy is really good for specific mathematical understanding of certain bits. If you're looking at markets, you can talk to a bit of that. And then finally, I'd just say don't underestimate the maths test, and there is preparation that you can do for that. What kind of test is it against?
It's Talent Q numerical testing.
Fine. Yeah, definitely. You can download practice tests, and I definitely recommend that you have a good crack at those before you open the online maths test that you're sent to check you out. That's it.
Great, thank you. No, that's some good advice there. Moving tone slightly to sort of the culture, the values of the organisation. So we've had a few questions come in wondering about sort of the working hours. Is it true that working in a bank that you're working significantly longer hours, or what is your work-life balance like? I guess over to you guys. What do you think?
Look, I think the answer to this question is closely aligned to which part of the bank you go and work in. It's no secret that if you go to BCMA, to our corporate investment bank, and you go into M&A, you will be working long hours, and there is bookshelves worth of books talking about life as an analyst in the M&A division. It is hard work. It's long days there, but there are the reward at the end of it is significant, and I won't say any more on that aspect. if you move back into, let's say, the more sort of functional parts of the bank, like markets and security services, it's much more dictated by trading hours. So I work in foreign exchange, which is an OTC traded product, over-the-counter product. So it trades 24 hours a day. We run it as a 24-hour business. So we effectively, as a team, pick a start and a stop point in the day. My day begins at about 7:15 when we bring the lines in from Sydney, and we finish trading at about 5 when we flick our lines over to New York. So our clients can get pricing and speak to people from Citi 20 hours a day, but we'll jump on and off. After I finish just at 5:15, it's really that wonderful military expression of you're in your own time, and you really are. I'm out the door at about 20 past 5. I live down in Wiltshire, and I hop on a train home, and I leave work behind me, and that's one of the great things of working in markets, because it's real time all the time. It's not like work is following you home all the time. But Nick, why don't you maybe about the private bank?
And then the private bank, I suppose. And I'd kind of caveat everything with, it's as hard as you want to push yourself, right? You're here to make your new career. So, the private bank, the first meeting is 8:30 in the morning, which everyone attends, and it sort of sets the tone. It's sort of CEO's prayers, if any of you are, in the HQ at the moment, and it sets the sort of battle rhythm for the day, if you like. And then most people are out the door by 6, if not 5:30. That said, in your first year, you probably get in for 7:30 so that you can, chat to whoever's there and try and understand what they do, and you'll probably stay a little bit later till 6:30 if there's someone hanging around, so that you can, sit and ask them all the questions that you wanted to ask them throughout the day, but they were too busy to answer. Just one on the culture, if I can tap onto that really quickly. Having had mates who have joined other banks, I just want to highlight this, which I think is really interesting, because I tried to figure it out. Citi is an incredibly collegiate environment. Don't get me wrong, it's incredibly cutthroat, and you've got to work hard to succeed. But it was amalgamated over the last 20 years, right, from a few different organisations, and that sort of culture sticks of sort of those that were willing to stick to it, get on with it, and sort of integrate with all the different wings of the business that came into it. So it is a fantastic place to work, in the sense that if you're someone who's willing to get stuck in and get involved and stick your neck out and go and meet people and go and ask people what they wanted, what do they do and how does it work, because you want to know and you want to professionally build that credibility, there is not one person in this bank who's going to turn around and say no. It's a fantastic place to grow and build your career.
Jack, any thoughts on work-life balance?
Yeah, although I'm within markets, I work on a structuring desk, which is a little bit more sort of project-driven rather than markets hours-driven. So, I could find myself leaving any time between, say, 6 on a good day through to sort of 9 o'clock, and then even later on a bad day when you're building up to closing a deal. But the one thing I would say is that it's very much sort of big boys rules, and there's no sort of playing the game of FaceTime and hanging around because there's someone else in the office and you don't want to be seen as sort of slipping off early. You work, you get your work done. As long as you're producing the goods, you can disappear. So sort of understand that, if you are working late, you are actually working late. You're not just sitting in the office twiddling your thumbs trying to look good to your colleagues.
And look, I think work-life balance is taken very seriously by Citi. The culture of the bank is changing. We were talking about this just before we joined the call, actually, and there is a lot of drive about wellness, about getting off the desk during the day, about getting out to the gym during the day, because the business knows that people have balance in life, that they're better at what they do. And also don't forget, teams are a fun place to work. My team, we're out at least once a month as a team for a night out. We go out, ski trip, there's summer trip. You get to know the people, and it's not you come in the morning and then leave in the evening without speaking to anyone. It's a fun place to work, and that brings with it a really good balance in work life.
Lovely, thank you. I'm quite conscious on time, so I'm going to sort of try and tie a couple of these questions together and maybe only have one or two of you answer each question, if that's all right. So the next, people are interested in sort of the key transferable skills or the key characteristics that you look for, and also how you can sort of determine your fit, which function should you look for and how do your skills match where. So if anybody could sort of enlighten us.
Yeah, so I'll pick this one up. So in terms of the key transferable skills, I mean, obviously everyone comes out of the army thinking, we're great leaders and we've had great experience, but funnily enough, as we've been said, you're not going to be leading a team here if you join these sorts of front office roles too soon. So actually, you're looking at some of the other skills you've learned. So really, it's that the interpersonal skills. Often you're dealing with clients on a day-to-day basis. Your attention to detail. I mean, everything that needs to be done here, you need to get it right, and you need to get it right first time. And it can seem a little bit daunting at times, but you can't afford to have sort of fat fingers and put a decimal point in the wrong place. So many of you throughout your careers, that's been a defining feature in the army, is that attention to detail in everything you do, and that's very much transferable to here. But I think one thing to consider is that there's no sort of single skills that are transferable to Citi. In fact, everyone comes out of the army with all sorts of different skills, different capabilities, and different strengths. And actually, the opportunities here are across markets and across the other divisions. They are so varied that actually you can discover an area within Citi that you can utilise those skills to your best abilities.
On where you fit, I'll do this very quickly. We'll try and help you with that. And that is the whole purpose of our Insight Day, is to help to guide you into what part of the bank you best fit. And even once people have gone through the programs, we've seen in a couple of instances of people moving. We've had a couple of guys move from markets into private bank, a year into the program, and we've had people move from markets to investment banking as well. But we'll try and help you find where you fit. It's largely down to what interests you. If you're really driven by financial markets, by the idea of sales trading, clearly it is a passion you need to have to go into it. If you're maybe more relationship orientated, then the private bank and the corporate bank are probably more your sort of cup of tea. Project management and product management, that's going to be more sort of trade and treasury solutions. So there is a place for everyone here, and we'll help you through the Insight Day get there. The best piece of advice I can give you is to transmute as many people as you can in all these areas, because that's how I found where I fitted.
Great. Thank you. So I'm not sure how much detail you'll be able to go into this one, and I'm sure you're expecting to be asked it, but what sort of starting salary can people expect, A, off the programme, and B, sort of building their career with Citi?
We were absolutely expecting this. I'm going to hand over to the campus recruitment team to sort of tackle this.
What I would say is that we are competitive with and in line with other banks. I can't give you an exact figure because it does differ per programme, but it is quite easy to find out online. If you just give a quick Google into Glassdoor, you can find out the figures online. And
all I say is I was very worried about this when I first joined the bank, with a young family, and I look back now and I think, what was I worried about? Money is not the defining reason why you should be coming to investment bank, but it is, being realistic, an important part of that. And Citi is very competitive in this, and we say that genuinely, and it is a steep curve, and you can go onto these sites and you can get a good idea of that. But it is going to be considerably more than your career in the armed forces. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, and that's easy for me to say, being 4 years in now. But I was worried about it when I first came. I look back now, and I had no reason to worry about it.
Lovely, thank you. And lastly, people are just wondering what happens if their dates don't add up with you, if maybe they can't apply for the programme or they're sort of deployed for the rest of the year. How is best to sort of make contact and make the next step with you?
Very good question. Not everyone can make it on the day, and we're conscious of that. Our main recruiting period is the September-October period. We've already spoken to a number of people who can't make it on the day on the 14th, and they will absolutely, if they hit the quality mark, be allowed to apply to our programme. if you are going to be deployed for the rest of this year, or let's say your starting dates don't line up with our January or September typical start dates, the message is to stay in touch, because actually in Nick's case, Nick was came along to the Insight Day in 2016, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 15.
2015, and didn't start the bank till 2017. So, stay in touch, get in touch with us, reach out to me on LinkedIn or through the campus recruitment team. We meet people every single week amongst the committee to talk about how to get there. And it's just a case of we'll try and fit you in where we can. But please don't worry about that, because the military is a busy place, and we've all been there. We appreciate that.
Brilliant, thank you. So thank you again to everybody there with you, Laurence, for all of you dialing in, sharing your expertise. It's much appreciated. And to everybody else, all the service leavers, or you looking for employment, if you go onto our website, you'll be able to see that we've recently posted a new blog article with Citi. So that's sort of interviewing Laurence just about his experience and what you can expect on the day. And you'll also find all the details for the 14th of August where you can register. For any questions, do drop us an email at client.admin@officersassociation.co.uk, and hopefully we can link you up with Citi. But again, thank you.